I'm going to talk about 3 of the many types of sources that you'll find when you're searching in the library's databases. We're going to talk about conference proceedings, journals which are not peer-reviewed, and then journals which are peer-reviewed, and kind of just the process of why researchers publish in those. And once you understand that, you'll be able to make a more informed choice about what kinds of sources you want to use. So the first one I want to talk about is a conference proceeding. I'm going to show each one in print and then show the same thing on the library's website so you can see what they look like. So this is the proceedings of a conference. It's called, the title of the proceedings are Advances in Grid and Pervasive Computing. And it lets you know here, it's the second international conference. GPC stands for Grid and Pervasive Computing. So that's the title of the conference. May 2007, it was in Paris, France. And then this lets you know these are the proceedings. Proceedings just means the papers that were presented at that conference. And if we want to find a particular paper presented at that conference, I just bookmarked one that we can look at. Here's one called Design of Pearsome. Pearsome is, it lets you know right here, it was a peer-to-peer sharing network, 2007. So cutting edge technology in 2007. Let's see if we can find that on the library's database. So I always put titles of articles in quotes. So we are searching for Design of Pearsome. And you can see I'm just on the library's homepage, library.txstate.edu. I'm just using the big search box right there in the middle. This searches most of the library's databases. And here we go. I get it right away. It is kind of erroneously calling it a book. Sometimes conference proceedings aren't interpreted very well by databases. It does look like it's in a book, but actually it's a conference proceeding. I'll click on one of these to show you what the record looks like. Here you can see the same authors that were listed in the record. And then under source, you see the information about the conference. It is in Advances and in Grid and Pervasive Computing, the Second International Conference, GPC 2007 proceedings. So all the same things that it said on the cover of the conference proceedings, it's saying right here under source. And indeed, these are the things that you'll need in your citation. So researchers will present preliminary research at a conference to get feedback. Or they might present things which are not, huge novel advances in computer science, but they would still like to share them with their colleagues. So conference proceedings, you'll find quite often will be published later in a journal. And indeed, if we look up Pearsome, the folks who presented at this conference did indeed later on present and publish more about this technology that they created. And so conference proceedings are not peer-reviewed. Conferences are intended to be a place to share preliminary work that's not final or not novel, not big giant advances. The next type are non-peer-reviewed journals. And so my example that I have here is from my discipline, College and Research Libraries News. Here is an article titled Rethinking Crap, CRAAP. This is a very old school test for determining the reliability of websites that people realize is very much out of date these days. And so there's actually a lot of articles on rethinking crap, and it's, funny to say, makes you giggle. The author is Jennifer Fielding. There's the title of the article. We can come down here at the bottom. You can see it's on page 620 of this teeny tiny little booklet. I'll cover that in just a moment. Down here, you can see it was published in December 2019. This is volume 80, number 11. So the reason it's page 620 is because at the end of a year, many libraries, and we are one, will take all of the issues in a journal that we decide that we're going to preserve, and we will bind them all together. So all the issues of a volume. So all of the volume 80 issues, this is volume 80, issue 11. It's the end of the year, December 2019. we'll bind them all into one bigger book. You know, it'll probably be about this big on the shelf. And then page 620 will make perfect sense because this is page 620 of volume 80. Let's go take a look at this article on the website. So here we've got our old conference proceeding is still up. I'm just going to close that tab, come back here. Again, we're just on the library's website. You can see at the top, library.txstate.edu. Again, I will just search for the title. This one was Rethinking CRAAP, Getting Students Thinking Like Fact Checkers and Evaluating Web Sources. And so when we click on it, you can see again, the journal article title is at the top. So that's the title of the article, just like we saw on the inside. The author, the source is the journal, College and Research Libraries News from December 2019, volume 80, issue 11, pages 620 to 622. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the conference proceeding, it may not have had it because it was a little bit of an older paper, is a DOI. This is just a unique identifier. And you can see right here, CRLN, College Research Libraries News, volume 80, issue 11, page 620. So you can already kind of tell that this gives you a unique identifier for this article just from that. So DOI is usually something that you can use to find an article, and that is why we put that in our citations as well. But I mentioned at the start that this is not a peer-reviewed article. So this is College and Research Libraries News. It happens to have a companion publication called College and Research Libraries that is the peer-reviewed version. So this is a place for people to publish articles, again, on their preliminary work, or they also publish opinions and essays in here, which are not actual research. So we've gone a little bit further in the research process. In a conference, you may present on work that is not finished, some preliminary findings, or maybe something that you've discovered that's not, a huge advance in computer science, but you want to share it with people. So that's a conference proceeding. That's something you present at a conference. Maybe you've gone a little bit further. You're ready to write it up, but it's not really ready for prime time. Or again, maybe it's not a major advance. So you might put it in a journal that is not a peer-reviewed journal. Write it up. This is a news journal for my industry, for librarians. So I might write something up that is not a major advance in my discipline, or I might write something up where I'm almost finished with something and I want to get, some other people's thoughts on it. This is not a peer-reviewed journal, so it's kind of not final science. When something is ready for prime time, when your research project is complete and it is a major advance in your field, that's when you're going to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. And so here is another journal to show. This is, I'm getting from 3 different disciplines just for fun. So this is the Brazilian Journal of Probability and Statistics. You can see they give it to you in very large print. This is volume 54, number 4, November of 2020. And I've bookmarked an article for us. This one's called Some New Stein Operators for Product Distribution. It's a probability and statistics journal. And so here, just like before, you've got your title of the article, you have your authors, you have your page number at the bottom. You can see, just like before, it is very large, 795, considering this very tiny little journal that I'm holding. And at the top, they repeat information about the journal for you. They let you know that this was published in 2020, volume 54, number 4, and the page numbers. They repeat it up there because they're designing for the fact that their journal article is going to be both in print and online. So let's take a look at this article online. This one was called Some New Stein Operators. I think it was for product distribution, but we don't have to do the whole title. Just put enough of the title in there to make sure that you get your unique article. And here we go, Some New Stein Operators. You can see the cover looks just like the cover of the journal I just showed you. And here we go, the article title. Here are the 3 authors, and the source is the Brazilian Journal of Probability and Statistics, as I showed you, October 2020, volume 34, issue 4. I think I said 54 earlier. It's because I was reading backwards on the screen. Sorry about that. Pages 795 to 808. And remember, the reason why it's a ridiculously large number is because at the end of the year, many libraries are going to bind together all of the issues in volume 34, and that's when page 795 will actually be the 795th page of the thing that you're holding. And down here we have the DOI, which is, again, digital object identifier, something that will allow you to find this article quickly. So we've kind of seen the process of publishing on a piece of research. An author may wind up publishing on their research project 3 or more times, but 3 of those times could be early on, they've started their work, they want to talk to people about it, so they present on it at a conference. And it is what it sounds like. It's a group of people in a room and they're talking to each other. But many conferences will kind of add some value to that author's experience by then printing up their paper that they wrote based on that presentation and putting it into some proceedings. This is especially common in computer science, where the pace of research is fast. And so conference proceedings are actually considered really valuable, even though they're not always and not usually final science. So not peer-reviewed, not generally final science. When you find a great conference paper, it's actually pretty good to look and see if a final journal article paper was published in a peer-reviewed journal. Not always going to happen, and that's okay. Just know it's not peer-reviewed. Along the way, they may talk about it again in a non-peer-reviewed journal, talking about, we're getting close to the end. Here are our findings so far. Maybe things have changed. Maybe they haven't. We're going to publish on it in a non-peer-reviewed journal so that we can get the information out a little bit faster. And then finally, when you've got your final work is complete, you're going to publish on it in a peer-reviewed journal, especially if it's a major advancement in your field. You want a lot of people to know about it. You want them to know that this is kind of good science that you've created. That's when you publish on it in a peer-reviewed journal. And that is a process that can take months, sometimes a year, sometimes more. Because what happens is you send your journal article in, you type up your entire work. Could be a year's worth of your life that you spent. Could be 5 years worth of your life that you spent on this research project. You type the whole thing up, you send it to the journal. They're going to find 5 people who are qualified to actually review your article. They're going to write back and give you a whole bunch of critique on the methods, the conclusions, all of the literature that you reviewed behind it. So your sources, just like your professor critiques your sources, their sources get critiqued. They say, oh, you didn't realize that somebody has already done your project. So that can be quite a lengthy process. That is why there's going to be less in peer-reviewed journals than there are in non-peer-reviewed journals, and less than you're going to find in conference proceedings. So searching all 3 is really good, but be aware of what you're going to find in each one. It's really based on kind of the publishing process, how long it takes, what each type of source is used for. So it's good for you to know what each type of source is used for in terms of why people publish there. That way you can make informed decisions about why you should use each type of source.